Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I want to do a quick video on the SKErgo through-hole kit. This board has been on my desk for the past 2 weeks or so now, and I've been loving this board a lot. And so this is a through-hole kit from keys.io, keys with a Z. And yeah, this has been a very affordable build, but it comes in a layout that is honestly, from what I've seen, typically reserved for more expensive boards. So yeah, let's get into that. So to start off, what is a through-hole kit? A through-hole kit, at least in the world of keyboards, typically means that you're going to have to do a lot of through-hole soldering. So through-hole soldering is the same soldering that you do with switches normally, because the pin pokes through the hole, you have to solder there, right? And so you end up doing a lot more with a through-hole kit. You end up having to solder fuses, diodes, resistors, the integrated circuit, etc. And so it's just a lot more work. But if you're a tinkerer or like to put stuff together, it's a lot of fun. And yeah, you can see at the top here, all the diodes, a few resistors. And so that was a lot of fun for me personally. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but you get to show off your work, right? And a lot of these through-hole kits come with the aesthetic of showing all the diodes, resistors, and whatnot at the top or somewhere on the board, which I think is a really cool kind of techie aesthetic. So yeah, really into that, really happy with how this turned out. The only thing that I was personally concerned about on this board was the USB port. It is a USB-C port, and there's a lot of tiny pins on that, but my friend reached out to me saying you can try drag soldering, which I didn't know was a thing at the time, and that made my life a lot easier. Soldering this entire thing was very simple. It was just kind of putting in the time to do it. Moving on now to the layout. So the layout is essentially an Alice layout. I'm just going to call it an Alice layout for the sake of this video, but it's not 100% a normal Alice layout. What I mean by that is that it's missing a second B here. So typically there's another switch here that acts as a second B. So if you press B with your right hand, you have that option. Or if you want to assign it to a different key, of course you can do that. But the Alice layout is basically an ergonomic layout where your wrists don't have to flare out. They end up sitting more naturally and more comfortably. So just for comparison, I do have my Portico here, and the alphas are staggered, right? So if you want to hit Q and all that, you end up flaring your wrist out. Obviously, this is an exaggeration. I'm not going to type like this, but you end up tilting your wrist outwards like that, which isn't great. You want your wrist to be neutral, not like that. So Alice tends to bring the keys in and angle them like this, so you don't have to do it as much. Your wrist ends up sitting a bit more naturally when typing on this layout. So yeah, one thing to note about this layout again is that you do have this cluster up here, which is pretty normal for a 65% type of board, but I hear that a lot of Alice fans tend to prefer this cluster on the left side, which I don't really get. Because this is more close to 65%, right? You have the same kind of cluster at the top left here. So yeah. So now let's move on to the actual build of this board. So this board is a lot of, I'm guessing, plastic or FR4 type of materials, acrylic, and obviously the components. So the base is made up of 3 acrylic pieces, which kind of go from smaller to bigger, so it kind of tapers off and makes up the feet, like the angle part of this board. And then you have this kind of base plate part, which I think is FR4. I don't actually know. It looks like it, but the base plate, I guess, analogous to a case, but in this case, haha, you can see that it's not really covering anything. You can see all the way through, right? And then you have the PCB, and this is a plateless build, so the switches just go right in, and then obviously keycaps. And so for this board, I didn't actually realize it was a plateless build until after I'd ordered it. And I was planning on mil-maxing this board. which is essentially a hot swap conversion that you can do on almost any board. And typically you want a plate to hold your switches in, but I still went ahead and min-maxed this, so boop. Yeah, I can just pop switches off, which is nice because Hyperglide Blacks are my favorite switch right now. But yeah, honestly, since I'm not running around with this board, I'm not throwing it in a backpack, it's not really a concern for me to have no plate on this. Of course, having a plate on it would make it sturdier and have the switches sitting properly all the time. But it's not a big deal since, again, this is just sitting on my desk all day. But yeah, overall, the build process was very simple. There wasn't anything that really caused problems. I think the soldering for this board is very straightforward. The only thing that you might want to kind of stress about is having the parts be aligned, mainly the USB port, because the friend that also bought one of these hit me up saying that he messed up the USB port and it's crooked on his. I saw the picture of it and it didn't seem that bad, but of course everyone has different standards. And after hearing that, I tried really hard to make sure that the USB port was straight. And I guess one other thing to note about this board is that, of course, is VIA compatible. And yeah, so I ended up mapping the board to be what it looks like. So up here, I guess one thing that I forgot to mention about the layout is that you can have a split spacebar. You can have a normal size spacebar here. I ended up going split because I thought I was going to use this backspace. I ended up mapping this to backspace. And that's been working wonderfully because I'm not going to use this as normal space because I use the left space. And yeah, after a day of typing, I got really used to it and it helps me out a lot having backspace right at my thumb. I think any board that I have that offers a split spacebar, I'm probably going to end up having to use it now. But yeah, anyways, let's get into a typing test. So overall, I think this board is amazing. I definitely see the appeal of through-hole kits. It was a lot of fun. It's not as time-consuming as you might think. Lubing your switches is going to take way more time. And overall, this build process, I used a lot of time after my normal job and put this together. Overall, I think it took about 6 hours. And that was a lot of just fitting in the diodes and resistors and stuff, making sure they were as close to the PCB as possible because you want it to look nice, right? And I ended up having a really scuffed job of cutting the leads because I don't have flush cutters. I ended up using side cutters, which don't do the job, but it's good enough for me. And yeah, apart from that, I think this board is amazing. If you're a tinkerer, want to get into keyboards for an affordable price, or just want a project for fun, through-hole kits are the way, and I think this is a really good way to get an introduction into Alice layout. I've always been curious about this layout, and I love it. It's amazing. I think any person who is like touch typing should try this out. It is so nice. I love it for work. For games, it's a little iffy because of the kind of space bar. It feels a little cramped for a staggered layout like this. But I've used ortho boards, right? So not a big deal for me. It might be a big deal to some. And another thing is keycap compatibility, which most people aren't going to care about if they're getting an Alice layout. But yeah, if you look here, I end up having to use shifts there. But I am getting a new keycap set for this. I ended up having to put PBT Notion on here because that keycap set didn't come on time, or like when I hoped it would be here by, which would match the black PCB a lot better. But yeah, I'm gonna end the video here. It's super hot here today, so If you're from BC, you know what I'm talking about. 34, 40 degrees Celsius is hell for us. But yeah, if you have any relevant questions to the board or anything in this video, just let me know and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And just reinstating, this board is amazing. Through-hole kits, I think, are a lot of fun to work with. They do end up feeling a little bit scuffed. I guess one brief thing that I didn't mention is that there's no standoff here, so you end up flexing here. But yeah, this was a really fun project, and I'll probably end up buying more through-hole kits now because I found that they're a lot of fun for me. They let me burn time in a way that I find productive, where I'm doing something that builds a skill, essentially, I guess. So yeah, if you're looking for a cheap keyboard, looking for a project, definitely look at through-hole kits. They're scattered all over the internet. You're not going to find them on really mech group buys or anything like that, as far as I'm aware. In terms of the ones that are in stock, or even on Thok stock, I don't think they have those listed on there. But just do some hunting, ask Reddit, ask Geekhack, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something that fits your needs. Anyways, that's going to be all. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.